This keyboard may be one of the best values I have ever tested when it comes to an all-metal, customizable mechanical keyboard with QMK firmware and wireless connectivity. This is the Bridge75, and you can get one for $85. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Shortcut Studio sent me the Bridge75 for the purpose of reviewing it. I was not paid to make this video, and Shortcut Studio has no input on my review. I have links in the description to retailers where the Bridge75 will be available. I believe one of the distributors for the US will be Divinity. I am an affiliate of Divinity, but I'll also link to the main list of retailers on the Shortcut Studio site. So if you do use my link to order through Divinity, you'll be supporting my channel, which I appreciate, but for I think all of the other retailers, I'm not an affiliate. Normally, when you're looking for a fully featured customizable keyboard at or under $100, you're looking at some type of sacrifice. Generally, you're either getting all of the features that you want, but maybe a lower build quality and certainly probably at least some or all plastic, or you might be able to get an all-metal build, but give up some of the features. But the idea with the Bridge75 here is that it gives you everything, the features, the build quality, a design that encourages customization, all for $85. And if you want a few more options, there's the Plus model for about another $15 to $20. But that doesn't mean there aren't any sacrifices here. So let's dive into the features and specs, and then we'll talk pros and cons. The Bridge75 is a 75% layout keyboard with 81 keys and an ANSI layout. It is not currently available in an ISO layout. There are three models available: the Bridge75, the Bridge75 Plus, and the Bridge75HE, which uses Hall effect switches. The main differences between the base model and the Plus model include a double battery capacity, full RGB lighting, an FR4 plate with flex cuts on the Plus model instead of the polycarbonate plate, and additional case color options. The construction is aluminum for the case top and bottom, and the weight is brushed stainless steel. The dimensions are 315 by 135 millimeters with a front height of 18 millimeters and a rear height of 33 millimeters without the keycaps. The weight is about 1,700 grams or 3.4 pounds. The typing angle is 6.5 degrees and there are no adjustable feet. Connectivity for the base and Plus models includes Bluetooth for 3 devices, 2.4 GHz, and USB-C wired. The HE model is wired only with 8 kHz polling. The internal components include a FlexCut PCB in the base and Plus models and a non-FlexCut PCB in the HE model, and all are hot swappable. The base model includes a polycarbonate plate, while the Plus model includes a FlexCut FR4 plate, and the HE model includes a non-FlexCut FR4 plate. Case foam, PCB foam, and a switch pad are included in all models. The case structure is a ball catch style for easy disassembly, and the mounting is button-style silicone gasket mounts. Included stabilizers are plate-mounted, and the PCB does support screw-in stabilizers. The base and Plus models include MMD Princess linear switches, which I believe have 48-gram springs. The keycaps are cherry profile double-shot PBT. The base model includes only indicator lighting and no per-key RGB lighting. The Plus model includes full per-key RGB. The battery capacity is 4,000 mAh for the base model and 8,000 mAh for the Plus model, while the HE model is wired only. All models feature VIA compatibility for customization on Windows, Mac, and Linux. The Bridge75 base model is available for $85 and $99 to $109 for the Plus model and $109 to $119 for the HE model, depending on the case finish, and those prices are all US dollars. The retailer list will be linked in the description. All right, let's start talking pros and cons for the Bridge75. Now, just to be clear, the model that I've been testing is the Bridge75, sort of the base model, not the Plus model. I will mention the Plus model a couple times as we talk about the pros and cons. Let's start off with pros here. First of all, the construction quality is a pro, especially at this price point. The machining of the metal is nice. The brushed weight It isn't exactly unique or high-end here, but the quality is nice. The ball catch assembly is really nice, and the internals are all good. It's also quite heavy for the size. This is a hefty keyboard. The disassembly specifically is great. It definitely encourages you to play around with adjusting the foams and other mods because it's so easy to just pop it open. It's also not so easy that it just comes apart when you don't want it to. Just to show you kind of the amount of effort that's required here, if you just kind of press down on a couple of keys here and pull up, pops right out. Do the same thing on the bottom, and there we go. I really like the attention to detail here on the inside, especially again at this price point, because we've even got things like little force brake pads in the corners that do come out. They're the same silicone material as the little button gasket mounts. It's encouraging you, to asking you to pop it open and do some customizing. The tri-mode connectivity is also a plus for this price point, and it worked well for me. Nothing out of the ordinary in terms of performance for the 2.4 gigahertz and Bluetooth connections. One thing I'm not sure of, which I will put in the description and I'll pin a comment under this video, is I'm actually not sure of the polling rates. Future Jeff here, I can confirm that the polling rates are 125 Hz for the Bluetooth connection, 1000 Hz for the 2.4 gigahertz and wired connections, and the HE model has an 8000 Hz polling rate over the wired connection. But regardless of the polling rates, the performance of both Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz was good for me. I did not have to have the 2.4 gigahertz receiver especially close to the keyboard. It worked at my normal distance of about 3 feet away because I keep my laptop off to the side of my desk. Now the stock sound is also quite nice. There weren't any sounds out of the box that I felt needed fixing. There wasn't unpleasant resonance, there weren't any unpleasant rattles. Sound is subjective, of course, so you may or may not like the actual sound that's here, but there's nothing major to complain about in my opinion. The typing feel is also a nice balance in my opinion. With the flex cuts in the PCB, I actually thought it might be a little too flexible for my taste, but it came out pretty nice here. I don't find it to be overly flexible, and the button style gasket mounts don't offer a ton of bounce like you would get with the foam sandwich style gasket mounts. You have a little bit more if you take out the bottom case foam, but overall, I feel like it's a good balance of that cushioned feel without feeling super flexible. Of course, I have to mention the VIA customization as a pro. This came in handy because of something that I'll mention in the cons. Normally, this could be something that would be a compromise or a sacrifice for this price point, so it's nice to have that here. The stock stabilizers, they're also good. There's really nothing to complain about here. I also like that the PCB has support for screw-in stabilizers if you do want to swap them out, but I haven't found any, excessive wobble and not any rattle. I do have a con more about the assembly than the actual stabilizers themselves, but we'll get back to that in a minute. The keycaps, they're also good quality. They're nothing like wild or out of the ordinary here. They're cherry profile PBT double shot keycaps, but the quality of them is pretty good. We have a nice full double shot layer here. They don't feel super thin or lightweight. The legends are nice and crisp, and you have a little bit of that PBT texture. They're not overly, super smooth or anything. So in general, I really can't complain about the keycaps. Now, the last thing I'll mention in the pros is kind of a conglomerate of all of the things I've already mentioned, really. It's just what you're getting for the price definitely is favorable with the Bridge75 here. For $85, all of this together in the same place at the same time, pretty remarkable. Now, before we move on to the cons, I have a couple things to mention in kind of the neutral space in between pros and cons, either because they're very subjective or I don't necessarily have all of the information to comment on whether it's pro or con yet. The first thing that I'll put in this category, sort of in between, is design, because of course, it is very subjective whether the design sort of speaks to you. The design of the Bridge75 is very sort of traditional, understated, nothing really unique going on here. I do like it, but maybe it's a little more muted than what some people are looking for. If you already have other metal 75% keyboards that kind of have this very traditional, straightforward styling, maybe you're looking for something a little more unique. You're not really gonna get that from the Bridge75. That's not the point of the Bridge75. I will say that the brushed stainless steel weight is definitely prone to picking up fingerprints, just like of stainless steel appliances. You can probably see some fingerprints from me. It also weighs too much to be a travel keyboard, so you're probably not picking it up a lot. The only other thing design-wise I will say is, these edges, they're not actually sharp in the sense of like cutting something, but they're not like the really smooth curved edges you will see on some higher priced all metal keyboards. Again, they're not like jagged, they're not poor quality, but the edges are kind of a fine edge. Now also in this in-between space, I'm gonna mention the switches. In general, they're fine. They're not amazing in my opinion, and some of them actually feel a little bit over lubricated to me, like a little lethargic kind of. But at the same time, I've also had way worse switches in terms of a pre-built keyboard. They're not pingy. I don't have a problem with spring ping. The weight of these, I think, is either the 45 or 48 gram. Princess Linears come in several different weights, but to me, these either feel like they're 45 or 48. They definitely don't feel heavy. I don't think they take away from the overall experience, really, other than a couple of them being over lubricated, I think. But they're just not really the best feature of the keyboard, so they're kind of in that in-between space. Another thing to mention here is the battery life. I really can't comment on how long the 4,000 milliamp hour battery in the Bridge75 model will last because it doesn't have any backlighting. So in theory, it should, in my opinion, I would expect to get 3 to 4 weeks out of it, considering we don't have lights or a screen or anything to really power. So it should be good. I mean, you should be able to get a month out of it, I think. The Plus model has a second 4,000 milliamp hour cell in it, so it's actually double the capacity. It does have the full backlighting, so battery life will depend on whether you use that backlighting, but in theory, you could get pretty long battery life out of the Plus model if you don't use the backlighting. All right, now let's move on and talk about a couple of cons that I experienced with the Bridge75. I experienced an issue with the Mac Windows OS key command that comes pre-programmed by default. The guide indicates that function and the Windows key should swap the modes, and it does sometimes. I had an issue with the consistency of that feature. It would pretty much always work the first time after I had connected it to my computer, but then the next time I would go to use it, it just did nothing. Like, it just nothing. After disconnecting the keyboard or toggling the power switch on and off, it would work again. Now, thankfully, since this already was just a key command and we have VIA for customizing, I addressed this by making my own Mac layer and assigning a different toggle key command here, so to just swap between the layers, and that works just fine. So the fix for it is easy and they give you a way to do it, but the default function did not really work well for me. Another con that does have a solution is that when I first started using it, I noticed that not just a couple of the keys felt over lubricated, but the stabilizers really kind of felt over lubricated to me, and they were. And when your stabilizers are over lubricated, they don't feel like springy, they don't feel snappy, they feel lethargic, potentially sticky, they don't rebound as quickly or as sharply as they should. That's how the stabilizers felt for me on my space bar and my enter key. The backspace key was actually pretty good from the start. Now the solution for that, of course, just take them apart, clean them, re-lube them with the proper amount of lube, and you're good to go. So again, you can solve for this pretty easily, especially if you are used to assembling keyboards yourself. But if you're not used to that and you're expecting to just take this out of the box and use it, if your unit also has over lubricated stabilizers, which it may not, then that would be annoying. So ultimately, would I recommend the Bridge75? Well, if you're interested in a 75% layout keyboard with a solid metal case and easy customization, then yes, I would. This one is pretty easy to recommend because the features and build quality are better than the price would suggest, in my opinion. So who shouldn't buy one? Well, if the design doesn't speak to you, of course, or maybe if you were hoping for a 75% keyboard that includes a couple more features like an encoder knob or even an LCD screen, those aren't options with the Bridge75. But if you're just looking for a quality 75% metal keyboard that's easy to customize, doesn't skimp on features, and even has the software customization, I think the Bridge75 is definitely worth considering. All right, so that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the Bridge75. Let me know if you're gonna pre-order one, and once you get one, let me know how you're liking it and what modifications you're doing to it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel, and if you wanna see more videos like this, how about these? There's a couple good ones right here. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.